Hello everyone, welcome back to another stat show powered by ShotScope. And in this video, we're going to be working with Graham. Now, Graham is a big fan of the channel. He comes away on our bus tours. We've had some good fun trips away with him. But you actually had a chance to play with Graham, didn't you? In the recent bus tour at Ashburnham and Parlinkemfig.
I did, yeah. I played a few holes with him on both courses. He's 34 years old.
Yeah.
4.8 handicap, I think.
Tidy golfer.
Has been as low as 2.8. He's a returning golfer, so he returned to golf during the lockdowns, which is quite interesting.
Wow, okay, great.
So he played as a junior in North Wales, and he kind of gave up, got down to a 10 handicap, I believe, and then he's come back into golf during the COVID spell. So
55 rounds of golf we've got to pick through for him. He's obviously a very keen golfer. We've got 55 rounds of golf that are on his ShotScope stats.
From just this year.
From just this year. Okay, so he plays obviously a lot of golf, which actually is even better, isn't it? When you can get a player that's got lots and lots of stats, you can get a real proper big picture of what's actually going on in their game and also some improvements as they kind of go along.
Absolutely, and Graham plays at a lot of different golf courses. So his stats, I've looking through it, and there's lots of different golf courses. So his stats will be more reflective of every golf course and not just a particular golf course.
Okay, so what we're going to do in this video is go through his stats and maybe come up with a summary at the end of things that maybe he might be able to work on to improve his golf. Stats then, Paul. Let's look at his stats. What have you found when you've been kind of going through, well, focusing on maybe some of the positives and then the negatives as well?
Absolutely, and it's really important to focus on both, not just to look at the negatives. Basing on his scoring, so we're going to start with that. His average score to par is 7.2 over par, which I don't think is far away from his handicap. The 5 handicap, I think that's pretty good.
Considering he's playing over lots of different golf courses, he's playing 55 rounds of golf this year, so there's a lot going on there, isn't there?
If we look into those scoring and break it down per hole, he's 3.5 on a par 3, he's 4.5 on a par 4, so he's half a shot over on each one of those.
Okay.
But on par 5s, he's 4.9, so he's actually gaining
a little bit on par 5s.
Yeah, so I would say par 5s is where he's excelling in, definitely.
Would you say though, I'm going to say this is for good golfers, let's say golfers that are under a 6 to 8 handicap, that sort of age, handicap range, would you say that that's kind of what you'd expect to see? A little bit of loss on par 3s, a little bit of a loss overall, par 4s because there's so many of them, but then small pickups on par 5s?
Definitely.
I mean, if I looked at my stats, I'd probably see something similar.
Yeah, if you look at a Tour Pro, if you look at the USPGA Tour stats, you'll see that they're all absolutely destroying the par 5s. And par 4s and par 3s are not quite so good. So I think with his handicap, being off a 5 handicap, you're going to see something kind of similar.
Right.
So if we now go and look at his strokes gained on the scoring, what you're going to see is that he's losing on his long game. So tee shots and approach, he's losing nearly a shot and a half a round.
Okay. But
he's gaining that back in his short game, and then he's losing a little bit on the putting side of it.
Okay.
So if you're going to summarise, you'd say his long game is what's kind of holding him back the most at the moment. If we go a bit deeper into his long game now, what you're going to find is that his tee shots, if we look at his accuracy straight away, he's 35% fairway, 33% right rough, and 30% left rough. So that's he's
big.
It's kind of, his misses are kind of all over the place. He's got no real consistency in his accuracy off the tee.
No.
So
he's just as likely to go left as right as straight.
Exactly. He's not eliminating a side of the golf course for one thing, and also it's just as much like to be in left rough or in the middle. So it's.
And the problem with that, because I've been through this little area of having what I call a two-way miss, and you get this, don't you, where if you're standing on a tee shot and you could hit the fairway, but you could go right and you could go left, there's your confidence starts to potentially drop a little bit.
It will do, yeah.
Because you don't know where, if you've got trouble right and trouble left, you don't really know what you're trying to do, and you can start to get a little bit confused on the golf course. So we might be seeing some of that with him.
Exactly. So when you look at those numbers, you can't say for sure that's definitely a technical fault.
Yeah.
That could be a mental fault. That could be his head is not in the right place on the tee shot that's causing those shots, not necessarily a swing fault. So it's always important to make sure you diagnose the problem first. And we're not going to be able to see from the stats without watching him actually play. You won't tell that.
Or asking him the questions of how he's feeling over certain shots.
Absolutely. When we look at his distance, his average performance distance is 234 yards off the tee. So he's pretty average. I think the stats for a 5 handicapper on average is 236 yards.
So he's there or thereabouts.
He's where he should be with distance.
Yeah.
I think the accuracy is something we need to kind of
dial in on.
Absolutely. And if we do dial into that, if we look on the shots gained area of the tee shots, when he hits a fairway, he's gaining 0.76 of a shot.
Okay. As
opposed to when he's missing left or right, he's nearly losing a whole shot. So when he's off the fairway and he's not hitting it straight, it's almost costing him a shot every time.
Okay.
So that's definitely an accuracy thing. It's highlighted there, and I think it could be that they could be drastically offline to be causing that amount of damage to his shots. So that's definitely something he needs to have a look at.
Okay. Which is good, because ultimately we are building a small picture here, aren't we?
Yeah.
Now, because his misses are causing him. It's not like he's just falling off the edge of the fairway where he's got a decent lie in the semi-rough. Being able to advance it forward and getting it roughly towards the green, he's having a problem. He's getting himself into so much trouble that he's losing a shot because he's either chipping out or he can't advance it that far.
Can't get to the green. Yeah, absolutely. If we now look at the approach shots, so that's his shots into the greens.
Yeah.
He's 47% short. His misses left and right are not too bad. And he's 29% on the green, 5% long.
Right.
So what I take from that is actually his iron play, which I'm assuming the majority of these shots will be with irons, is actually not wayward in sort of contrast to what's happening off the tee.
Off the tee, yeah.
But it is 47% short. So that's quite a big number, really. So his misses tend to be short. And again, that could be misclubbing. It could be mishitting.
Yeah.
We're not sure.
Yeah.
Now, if we go and look at his putting side of it, now this was costing him half a shot per round.
Okay.
So this is something he needs to kind of tidy up, or we need to look into what the problems are.
Yeah.
Strokes gained, or the putting by distance, so under 10 feet is where he's struggling the most. He's losing 0.7 of a shot.
Okay.
On his putting under 10 feet. So that's causing a big problem. So it's the short putts that are an issue. The further he gets away from the hole, the better he's becoming. So from 20 to 30 feet, he's gaining on his putting.
So what would be interesting there is when you get players that tend to miss short putts, I would like to have I'd like to sit down with him and have a chat with him about what he's thinking and when he's setting up to these putts, because obviously the rest of his putting game looks quite tidy. He's there or thereabouts. He's even gaining in certain areas. But when you're missing and losing so much to the field in short putts, is there a mental error there going on? Because obviously the percentages that we see in gains from going from good, handicap ranges is small. What's causing that? It'd be interesting to see what's kind of going on there.
It's quite a significant number as well.
It is a big number, yeah.
I think, and you can't tell by just looking at the stats as to whether it's a technical issue or it's a mental issue.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something he needs to look at and address. Okay, right. So if we now look into his short game, the stats are pointing out that it's the strongest part of his game.
Okay.
He's gaining 1.84 shots per round,
which
from
is
around
tidy.
the greens. Yeah,
very good.
It's very good. His proximity by club. Now this is based on what club he uses around the greens. Now his putter, he's used 291 times from around the green in the rounds that we're analysing.
Yeah.
That's by far the most club used. And his proximity to the hole is 5 feet with that, which I think is very good.
That's tidy.
Yeah.
If you compare that, looking at stats, if you compare that to the average 5 handicap golfer, The average 5 handicap golfer is going to be about 5.5 feet.
Okay.
So he's gaining a little bit on the average golfer there from 5 handicap. Whereas if you look at a scratch golfer, it's around 4.5 feet. So he's kind of sat slightly in the middle there. So around the sort of 2 or 3 handicap range, I would suggest. So, I mean, ultimately he has to pick up somewhere, and this is obviously where he's doing it.
Yeah, and he's doing it very well.
Yeah.
If we look at the short game by lie type in the strokes gained, this is showing also that he's excelling from off the fairway around the greens.
Okay.
So
if he's got a nice lie that he can get the putter onto it.
He's gaining each area,
Yeah.
the rough, bunkers and the fairway, but
Well,
the fairway is double the amount about the rough. So that's telling me again that he's probably using the putter off the fairway, and that's where he's really got a very solid short game from putting off, which is going to tie in with what we saw with the putting stats, which was the further away he was from the hole, the better his stats were. So for me, that's telling me he's probably a very good reader of the greens, or he's very good at pace putting.
Yeah. So some very good stats. I mean, you'd like to see some good stats with 55 rounds of golf in less than 6 months. So summarise it then for me, Paul. You know, what would you be saying to Graham at this stage if you wanted to give him some advice to take away with these stats?
So Graham told me when I played with him that he was looking to kind of this year work on his technique. He knew he had some inconsistencies in his long game, and he wanted to sort of spend this year. He wasn't worried about his handicap or his progress. He just wanted to try and work on his swing to become more consistent and give this year to doing that.
Yeah.
And I think based on what we're seeing with the stats, I think he's probably going down the right road, as in his long game needs to become more consistent. We could see with those tee shots that he was kind of, his dispersion was probably too much.
Yeah.
And it was costing him on his stats, definitely.
I mean, some of the things that I've picked up on there, I mean, you talked about that he tends to come up a little bit short in a lot of his approach shots.
Yeah.
So the things that I would be saying to Graham or asking Graham is, you know, what's happening when you're over the ball? You know, are you choosing the correct club? Do you know your yardages? Is that something that he could go away and work on? Could it be that the clubs that he uses, you know, he talked about coming back into the game, maybe he's got an old set of clubs, I can't remember exactly what he uses, but, you know, is there an area of his clubs that he could look at that might be able to help him, you know, gain him the yardage or get him to the hole a little bit more consistent? And then we look at the short game, the short game side of things and the putting in particular, and you can see there that what was amazing was that he excels in the long putting off the green.
Yeah.
You know, for me, I see someone there that is playing lots of golf. I'd be interested to know whether he spends a lot of time practicing or whether he focuses his playing as he's practicing, because we see that with players that play a lot of golf. They tend to have a tidy little short game really because they're playing a lot.
Yeah.
But what is fascinating, and again, I'd like to have a conversation with him about, or get him to speak to someone about, is he's a great putter from off the green and at distance, but when he's getting into those short ones, what's going on? Is it a technical thing? Is it something that he could sit at home and work on a mat or on his carpet at home? Or is it something that he needs to actually just have a little think about what's kind of going on there, or speak to someone about the mental approach of what's happening with his short putts?
100%. You need to diagnose correctly first rather than kind of guess.
Yeah.
Because if it's a mental issue, he doesn't want to go working on his technique, because that could be absolutely fine and he could actually make things worse. Yeah. And vice versa. If it's, you know, if his mental game is good, he doesn't want to be doing anything mental wise. You know?
So we're saying then that actually, if you look at it, his long putting and his short putting, if you put them together, they're kind of counteracting each other in some ways.
Yes, it's actually taking off half a shot around.
Right.
So the short putting, however good he is at the long putting, the short putting is still
costing him when
more
he gets
than what he's gaining. Yeah.
So I think from what we're seeing here, again, we'd have to have a proper conversation with Graham about it. But ultimately, to take this away, he's got some key areas there that he needs to get it in position off the tee a little bit better, doesn't he?
Definitely.
He needs to go to a coach and have a little look at the reasons why he's having a two-way miss. I think a two-way miss is one of the most dangerous things that you can have for your mental game, more so than anything else.
And his miss is too often as well, based on those stats, definitely.
So there's a few key areas that we've kind of looked at there for Graham, as you can see from this video. I think there's a few areas that Graham can have a little think about and work on. And I absolutely know that this video will resonate with so many golfers out there. There's key areas there that I think if you could put a lot of people in this category of what is happening with Graham. So there's hopefully something you might be able to take from this yourself. Well, thank you very much, Paul. And don't forget, if you are new to the channel, when you like what you're seeing from this stat show, that you hit that subscribe button, you give this video a thumbs up, and please leave a comment. We'd like to read what you have to say about this video. And we'll see you all again on the next show.